Welcome to the World School of Massage's second talk today at the new Living Expo. Today we have Steven Budden speaking about his new book as well as his long history in helping people release trauma in their body and looking at it differently and holistically. So please welcome Steven Budden.
Thank you for coming. My name is Steven Budden, as he just said, and I run Flow Healing Arts in the Bay Area. The title of my talk today is Flowing into Bliss, Releasing Trauma and Awakening. Now I'd like to speak a little bit about that title. Flowing into Bliss, Releasing Trauma and Awakening. For me, I had an awakening experience which affects a lot of my work. In 2005, I was on a coastal road trip with my father, and toward the end of it, we were walking down this beach, and as we were walking, this beautiful woman ran by us, and her hair was trailing in her wake, and it was just this glorious scene with the sun, and I looked at her, kind of admired her form, and wondered if I should feel guilty about it, or if this was just admiring beauty in nature. So I looked down at the sand, and I saw her footprints trailing off behind her. And as soon as I noticed that, a Pacific wave washed up, pulled back, and the sand was just glass smooth, and those footprints were washed away. And I was kind of washed over with this profound sense of peace and calm. And it was like pain and pleasure and life and death and agony and ecstasy were all in that one moment. And as tears streamed down my face, and it was just like such a complete experience. Has anyone ever experienced something like that? Yeah, thank you. Anyone open to experiencing more of that? Yeah. So what I noticed in my work is I've lost touch with that experience. It's come and gone, basically. So it's always with me as kind of a constant companion, but I lose and gain these openings and closings. And I found that as I work with clients and as I've done trauma release on myself, that I start to re-access that kind of blissful state. And so let me talk a little bit about what I do. I use a combination of touch and kind of compassionate inquiry to feel into a client's life experience and see where there may be blockages. Now, if you would all close your eyes for a moment, please, and take a deep breath, and just come into the space here. And as you breathe, try to kind of breathe down into your belly and get grounded. And as you're inside like this, just notice what's going on for you in this moment. Any sensations in your body. And without attaching a story or letting it get carried away too much, just notice. And notice if there's any blind spots. Because a blind spot might be a sign of having left a part of yourself in the past. Now just integrate that, and you can open your eyes. Thank you. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how that becomes part of the work. They say in certain traditions of Taoism and Buddhism that there are 4 portals to awakening, trauma being one of them. The other 3 are death, meditation, and sex. So, anyone wishing they'd gone to the sex talk? Okay, thank you. And actually these overlap in kind of profound ways, obviously. As we work on our issue, that coming inside is the meditative aspect. There's often trauma around sex, and so the way they overlap is like we actually touch on all of those. Not all of us are blessed to just have the sexual awakening like that. So how did I get into this? For me, pain was kind of the catalyst for my own awakening. And that's what I try to work with clients to start that paradigm shift of seeing pain as a potential catalyst for awakening. I spent many years just very sick and depressed. I had this constant rash on my face. Doctors didn't know what it was, and I didn't either. Just trying to ameliorate the symptoms without really getting to the root wasn't working. So in a way, I'm grateful. As I explored the root of what was going on with me, I had to go really deep into my past, into my experiences and feelings in my body. And I gave up gluten and dairy and made all these empowering changes, which I work with clients on as well. And I'm just so grateful, because I don't know where I would have been if I had just continued on that road of just being depressed, obsessed with my work, and not really in my body. Anyone have some issue that's been chronic or persistent for them that they've been working on? Yeah? Thank you. Yeah. So for me, I just started not knowing where to start. I was desperate, and desperation can either close us down or open us up. So for me, it really opened me up to any possible thing that might work. I tried all these meditations, different healing modalities, and spiritual pursuits, different diets and fasting, and HUNA and NLP, and all this stuff, and all of it basically saying that it was the one way to go. You know this, and your problem solved. And there's still some of that, and I've learned that it's kind of a holistic approach. Not one of those is going to just cure all your issues there. And while I started kind of blindly, just going through all those places before I wound up knowing what I know now, I'd like to facilitate a little bit easier transformation for my clients. That's kind of part of my goal. It's like, maybe you don't have to take as blind and staggering and stumbling a road as I took to reach where you want to go. That's my hope. And there's this quote I like: pain is the kind of fire that burns through the sleep of the mind. And I recently read that. I don't remember who it was, but it just really touched me. So a lot of the work I started with was psychological and diet. I had another kind of incident in 2008. I was drifting on a bodyboard in Pacific Ocean in San Diego. And I was just really enjoying the water. I'd been catching waves all day. The sun was about to set. It was just a really blissful moment. And I thought I'd catch one more wave before I went in to kind of just celebrate this experience. And I felt something shift. And as I started to paddle, like maybe I didn't paddle fast enough, or maybe this wave was a little larger than I thought, but it just took up the back of the board and it slammed me into the ocean floor on my head. And I just tumbled in the water for a while, just swallowing water, sand in my teeth. One arm I couldn't feel it, so I just knew something serious was going to happen. I'm taking a breath, checking in with myself here. And let's all check in with ourselves, because some of these stories can awake things in us. And it's this constant being in touch with ourselves that's the key to releasing. But as I tumbled in the surf, I started to have these thoughts that weren't really about myself. I was living with my brother, and he had issues with like drugs and other things, and I felt like I was kind of taking care of him. And there was a woman who I had recently gotten involved with, and she had relocated for me. So interestingly, I felt that draw, and I kind of found my way to the surface and climbed out of the water. And the doctor later, they took me to the ER on a stretcher, and then it turned out I had cracked my 5th vertebrae. It was just the impact. And they told me that if I had weighed like 5 pounds more, I'd probably be dead or paralyzed. And it was an experience where I was like 10 days or 8 days into a water fast, and I probably weighed like 8 pounds more than I would have weighed if I hadn't have done that. So of course these tears streamed again, and I was just grateful to be alive. And it kind of exploring these issues with the broken neck and the concussion and things, that led me into the somatic, the body portion of my work. And that was kind of pivotal, because before I didn't know, I wasn't getting anything that was really anchoring in me in terms of releasing my own stuff. So through that I started getting neck work and different types of body work and just exploring the bones and all that. And I actually started to find my center in that way. So it's interesting that a wave from a Pacific brought me this awakening experience, and then another one brought me another type of experience, slamming me into the ocean floor, and just both of them helped me unfold in powerful ways. And I'm grateful for those messages, and I kind of hopeful that they'll be a little more gentle in the future. So trauma happens when an experience is so painful that part of us goes away. That's my definition. There's some other definitions, but we really injure something and it's just too much to bear in that moment. It could be emotional or physical. So part of us kind of goes away to help us in that moment. That's the resource that we kind of have. We don't know what else to do. It's all unconscious. A lot of times this fight or flight mechanism gets activated. We get the fighter, I'm going to fight or flee, and our physiology pours all its energy into that. So it shuts out a lot. And everywhere we go away, everything that gets shut out just gets stored in our cells. So when it's stored in our cells, these things can trickle out into our lives. They just kind of keep bubbling up. So part of what I do is helping create controlled releases for that, so you can kind of get some of those things out. Because when fight or flight energy stores, that stored energy is kind of like a primal emotion. If we don't get to actually fight or flee, but our body has put all this energy into that, it still has all that energy. So a lot of times my clients get the urge to kind of run or move, or I guide them through like punching or resistance things, and that really helps just get that energy out. Like, you'd be surprised just how resisting someone's arm as they push you, how they could just, all this rage could come up. And it's not really something that you would predict. Like, it's not where we usually look for our trauma. We usually go like, what happened here in our head? What memory was this? How does this connect? It's not like you would just push a wall and go, oh, hey, there it is, So this is the body, mind, spirit connection again, so amazingly intertwined, that fascinates me again and again. So we've all taken different approaches to our trauma. For one thing, we're all very unique beings, and what might traumatize one person might not even affect another. So it's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it. An obvious example is a loud noise could traumatize an infant, whereas like a construction worker might not even notice the same noise. And then another one is the same exact event, people the same age and seemingly similar background. One is traumatized by kind of ferocious words from a parental figure, and another one, is not. It just passes by because they're working on some other level there. Bless you. So there are different ways we respond to that, and we've all dealt with it in different ways. Like, some of us, in the physiology, to protect our heart, some of us close it off or we put it back to be safe. It's amazing how many times I just bring the heart forward a little bit, doing standing work with a client, and all this stuff comes up. It's even sometimes like a 1/4 inch. And let's do another deep breath here. You want to check in? Close your eyes, please. And if you could put your feet on the floor, both your feet. part of this brings us into our body. This roots us into the earth, and it's kind of the opposite of being up in our head where we're not really resourced. And take a few deep breaths. Notice what's going on for you. No story, just the sensations, depth, shallowness, their shape, things like that. And one more deep inhalation. And exhale with a sigh. So looking for, okay, you can open your eyes now, please. Looking for blind spots in ourselves, it's not always easy. I like to say it's like a lantern looking for shadows. And wherever you've pointed, the shadow goes in that direction. So what I do is kind of help guide people to those spots where, like, I'm feeling something up here right now, which, you know, I don't know exactly what it is, and I've been tracking my sensations, but if you weren't, you could easily pass that. But if someone put your hand there, if I put my hand there, I can start to feel it again. That's similar to some of the work that I do. I touch those blind spots, and sometimes just stay in that uncomfortable long enough where to allow things to surface, and then as they surface, witnessing them without judgment. And that's often all the release we need. And it's basically holding space to allow that energy that's been trapped in there to come out and just witness it. And that's very powerful. As an example, I was working with a client, we'll call her Lucy, and I was holding her arm, and as I moved her arm around, I kind of noticed one area where her breathing got shallow and she kind of shook a little bit, and it was just really watching her. Otherwise I might have passed that by, but instead I went right back to there and just kind of held it, and then encouraged her to take a deep breath. Of course she took a little breath, and I'm like, try a little bit deeper one. You know, sometimes we've learned not to breathe into that, it's painful. But as she breathed again, these tears flowed, and I just witnessed that for a little while. And then I asked, what's going on for you? Gently. And she said that her father used to pull her by that arm when she was young, and her father had passed away. So by storing that in her arm, that was the way she kind of held on to her father. And her father's funeral was like a year before, and she hadn't cried at all. So just opening this up, let the tears flow and her get in touch with her emotions, and it was just very powerful. And for me to witness it, and for her, it just changed kind of her energy, and brought everything into flow. That's where we get into the flow thing. As we come back into flow and come back into the moment, not leaving parts of ourselves here in the past, there in the future, there over there, our energy systems come into balance, and we actually start to heal. Just our body does it. It moves the energy to where it kind of needs it. So I think one of the keys to releasing this trauma is gently re-experiencing it without the normal panic and things that ensue, that come with it. So we do kind of what we call pendulation, where we go into it, into the uncomfortable, some of the stuff starts to come up, it's scary, then we come back out, get grounded, get some resources, and each time we go back into that experience, it's a little less frightening and overwhelming. And we go back and forth like that until we can be in that experience, still being aware and exploring what's going on. A lot of times when there's something in our life that's intense, we lose touch with everything that's not intense. So, like a shoulder pain, you don't notice all the sensations flowing in your body, the cells pulsing, the energy moving. You're just stuck on this shoulder, ow, ow, ow. It's similar like that in your life. So being able to be in that spot and remain aware of the rest of the physiology, it's like this new world opens where you're just in flow and life is beautiful. You can connect with people again, and I've experienced it through having my own traumas worked on, and I experience it again when it comes up in clients, and it's just like what the human experience seems to be about, and it's just a beautiful feeling. How many would like more of that in their life? How many have enough of it already? So as an example, I mean, I can't claim everything is connected to the work I do, but after we released this shoulder thing and Lucy, she got engaged like a month later to her boyfriend who she was with for like 5 years, and they were kind of stuck. So it's like she said something about trusting men and her father issues. They got cleared from the tissues and the field in such a way where this beautiful other thing was allowed to occur. And she kind of talked to me about it, so that's how I made that connection. So I was just like very grateful to have contributed in that way. Now take another breath, please. You don't have to close your eyes this time, just check in. You can ground yourself though. And notice what's going on for you now. If anything's arising. Ideally, we can be in this constant state of awareness, no matter what's buffeting us around. And even in the moments of pain and pleasure, we're not leaving our body and coming back. We're always in there embracing, listening for the messages from our body. Because they're always giving us these messages about what we need, what we don't have, what we might be holding on to. So, though it could seem pedestrian just breathing and searching your body, it's actually very transcendental, and I consider it spiritual. I did this Vipassana 10-day Buddhist retreat, and you just sit there for 10 days in silence, tracing your body up and down, and all these mystical experiences arise, and there's nothing you add. You're just in your body, tracing it. So this is kind of what I advocate as awakening, the spiritual act of awakening, and in my approach is just kind of being in the body, being fully embodied, not in the past. So we get some chanting now? Good timing. So part of the paradigm shift is that when we find ourselves in this suffering and these pain states, we can tune in, begin to tune in and know that something's happening that is for our evolution, our awakening, our unfolding. It's kind of like we're flowers in a bud, and the sunlight is descending on us and we're starting to open. Seeing the pain as the sunlight is like a huge paradigm shift, but it can be that way. It's just something touches us and we start to open. I think trauma is powerful because oftentimes you can't ignore the signs of it. So it's like, it's not like, I don't want to meditate today. It's like, this keeps bothering me, I guess I'll do this. And it's a very insistent way to get deeper into our issue and our story. And there's this Anais Nin quote, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. And what I like about that quote is the painful part. It's kind of you endure the pain, and then you just need to blossom once you make that discovery in yourself and you decide to go that path. And we're all in different stages of readiness. So our body protects us by holding these things in until it's really ready to come to the surface. So it's really all like divine timing and perfectly arranged. So I want to kind of come to the conclusion here. So with gratitude and love, I come to this conclusion, and knowing that each end is a new beginning. I like this quote by Suzuki. It's something like, we should burn ourselves up completely in everything we do, like a good bonfire. And essentially, trauma has left its residue in us, its ashes, and it's up to us to kind of burn it in the fire of our unfolding as we move through life. it's my hopes that you go away from this event today with just some new awareness, some new way of looking at the things you've been struggling with, and beginning to get a little bit excited. I mean, we don't want to leap too far in our vibration here, but just starting to see that, wow, this has really brought me to a place where I can really grow. Like, none of you would be here if it weren't for what happened in the past, and it really is in alignment with your highest self. It's just not always evident in the moment until you start to build this in. So one more eyes closed, deep breath, feet grounded. If you can breathe into your bellies. Notice any sensations, pleasant or unpleasant. There's no need to really create the stories or label right now. You can sigh on the exhale, that releases energy. And just know that this moment is different than any other moment. All the sensations here you've really never experienced in the exact same way. And know that all the keys to your unfolding are actually within you. Another deep breath. Exhale and come back into the room. Thank you. So does anyone have any question or shares? Maida.
I have a question about trauma.
Okay.
Because I also work in this. And do you think that people release more with a witness than they do with exercises they can do on their own? Or is there even a way to compare it?
Well, the question was if people release more with a witness, or if there's work they can do on their own to release. And I have found that the witness really helps. For one thing, they can just help hold the space, where if we're not resourced when we're having those releases, even our unconscious can guide us away from that because we're going too far. We're not really ready, and we don't have the strength by ourselves to go into the discomfort or stay there a little longer. So I think the witness can help, even facilitating, pointing out the blind spot and just giving support, and the act of witnessing all contribute.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
I have a question.
Oh yes, please.
Could you tell us a snippet about your book?
Okay. So I recently published a book, Flow. And this actually contains some of the stories that I told just now, and some of my history of going down and up, into despair and toward awakening. And writing this book was very powerful for me because I had to kind of clarify all this in me and go through all that stuff again as I wrote it. So this was a powerful experience for me. And I have some up here, it's $10. And I also do sessions in my office in Alameda or in your home. But I do a free complimentary intro session just to show what the work is, because it's easier to experience than explain, like everything in life. So if you get in touch with me and come to one of those sessions, I'll give you one of those books. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming, and it's been very rewarding. I look forward to growing alongside you. Thank you.